One day, Mary was busy setting up a Zoom meeting on her computer, when all of a sudden, she was Zoom bombed by an amazing shining being. Mary was very surprised because she hadn't shared the Zoom login details with anyone else, and also because it was the first time she had ever seen such a beautiful shining being. Mary was wondering whether to end the meeting when the shining being started to speak. Unfortunately, Mary missed the first part because the angel was still muted. Anyway, eventually they worked out how to unmute the being, and Mary listened intently as he spoke. "Greetings, Mary," said the being. "I am an angel sent from God to bring you good news." Mary very much liked the sound of that, because it had been a pretty rubbish year and she hadn't had any good news for a long time. "God is going to give you a baby," continued the angel. "He will be..." Mary sat on the edge of her chair, waiting with anticipation for the angel's dramatic pause to end. After a few moments, she realised that her internet connection was unstable and that the angel's screen had frozen. But eventually the angel flickered into life again. "He will be a king, and he will rule over all his people and over all the earth." Mary was pretty scared at the angel's words, but she also knew deep inside that God was with her and she trusted in him. Despite the fact that the land was in lockdown, Mary and Joseph had to travel all the way from their home in Nazareth to Bethlehem. It was a long and tiring journey, and the weather was rubbish. It was made even more difficult by the fact that Mary was about to give birth to the baby Jesus very soon. Mary and Joseph had checked Airbnb and TripAdvisor before they set off. Sadly, because the whole area was now in Tier 4 restrictions, all of the normal places to stay had been closed down. Mary and Joseph drove round and round the town, looking for somewhere to stay. They were desperate to find someplace safe before the baby arrived. Eventually, someone got in touch with Mary to say that they had a spare garage which could be used as an emergency. It would be cold and drafty, but at least it was dry and would give them some shelter. By this time, Mary and Joseph were so exhausted and they were just happy to find anything to give them some shelter. Eventually, they found their way to the garage. Later that same night, Mary cuddled the baby Jesus close. He had been born soon after they arrived. It was cold and drafty in the garage, but Mary did her best to make the baby safe and warm. She found an old box and padded it out with some cloths and blankets. The baby Jesus actually looked pretty cozy when she wrapped him up. Mary was exhausted by the events of the day, and she decided to have a wee snooze while the baby slept. That same night, a bunch of farmers were working out late in the fields. It was pitch black, and they were doing their best to get finished and to head home in time to catch the final of Strictly Come Dancing. Suddenly, the night sky was lit up. The farmers couldn't believe their eyes. There were a whole bunch of amazing shining beings up in the sky above them. One of them spoke to the farmers. "Greetings," he said. "I know you want to get home in time to watch Strictly, but first, you really need to go and see this amazing baby who will save the whole world. And the best news is that he's been born just down the road from here." The farmers were amazed. They quickly checked Google Maps and worked out where the baby had been born. And then they hurried off as fast as they could go, all thoughts of the Strictly final now forgotten. After the farmers had left, Mary was drifting off to sleep again, when suddenly some important scientists arrived at the garage. They had been working on an experiment and realised that they needed to travel to Bethlehem to meet this incredible new baby. Thankfully, they had already finished their tests on the new coronavirus vaccine, so they had a bit of time to spare. They brought with them some amazing and valuable gifts to give to the baby. They even bowed down before the tiny baby Jesus. Mary was so surprised, but she was also really happy. She realised that it wasn't just her world that had changed completely that night, but she knew that things would never get back to normal again. She knew that she and Joseph and all the world would have to get used to a new normal.